Welcome to Thrive Thursday. Think about the last time you had one of those days when your energy simply wasn't there. Perhaps you woke up already feeling tired, you rushed through the morning, spent most of the day sitting indoors, moved from one responsibility to another, barely thought about hydration, and carried a growing mental load throughout the day. By mid-afternoon, everything seemed to require a little more effort, concentration became harder, movement felt heavier, and you found yourself wondering, why am I so tired? There isn't always one simple answer. Our experience of energy is influenced by many interacting factors, which is why one of the most useful ways to think about everyday vitality is this. Healthy energy is a system story. Our bodies don't experience sleep, movement, stress, hydration, and recovery as completely separate compartments. They interact, and this is where lifestyle medicine becomes practical. Rather than searching for one perfect habit, we can look at the environment we're creating for our bodies every day. Let's begin with movement. Regular physical activity influences much more than how many calories we burn. Movement helps maintain cardiovascular fitness, skeletal muscle function, metabolic health, and physical capacity. And movement doesn't only mean structured exercise. Walking counts. Taking the stairs counts. Standing up after sitting for a prolonged period counts. Moving around during your working day counts, and resistance training provides another important stimulus by challenging muscles to maintain strength and function. This matters because our bodies adapt to what we repeatedly ask them to do. If movement remains part of everyday life, we are regularly giving our cardiovascular system, muscles, and joints opportunities to work. That doesn't mean every day needs to involve an intense workout. Sometimes one of the most practical lifestyle changes is simply looking at how much of the day is spent sitting and finding opportunities to interact it. A short walk during lunch, standing and moving between tasks, walking somewhere you might normally drive when practical, taking a few minutes to move after a long period at a desk. Small amounts of movement can accumulate across the day. Now let's move to another major foundation, sleep. It is difficult to talk meaningfully about everyday energy without talking about sleep. Sleep isn't simply a period when we're doing nothing. It's an important biological state associated with recovery, cognitive function, hormonal regulation, and normal daytime functioning. Yet sleep is often one of the first things sacrificed when life becomes busy. We stay awake later to finish work. We continue scrolling when we intended to go to bed. Our bedtime changes dramatically from one night to another. And sometimes we simply don't allow ourselves enough opportunity to sleep. Supporting healthy sleep doesn't require turning bedtime into a complicated project. Start with the foundations. Try to maintain a reasonably consistent sleep and work schedule where your circumstances allow. Create a transition between the activity of the day and bedtime. Reduce unnecessary stimulation late at night. And most importantly, give yourself sufficient opportunity for sleep. Then there is something many of us have access to every day but rarely think about as part of lifestyle medicine, natural daylight. Our bodies contain an internal circadian timing system that helps coordinate patterns of sleep, wakefulness, and alertness across approximately 24 hours. Light is one of the most important environmental signals, helping that system understand what time of day it is. Exposure to natural light, particularly earlier in the day, can therefore help provide timing information that supports healthy sleep-wake rhythms and daytime alertness. And the practical application couldn't be much simpler. Go outside, perhaps combine morning daylight with a short walk, drink your morning tea outside, step outdoors before beginning work, or spend part of your morning commute exposed to the natural outdoor environment where practical. It doesn't need to become another complicated health ritual. It is simply recognizing that our physiology evolved within a natural light-dark cycle, and our modern indoor lifestyles can sometimes reduce our exposure to those environmental cues. Now consider hydration. Hydration is one of those areas where health messaging can easily become exaggerated. Water doesn't need magical properties to be important. Adequate hydration supports normal physical and cognitive functioning. Our fluid requirements vary according to factors such as body size, physical activity, environmental temperature, and individual circumstances. Someone exercising in hot, wet air may have very different needs from someone spending a quiet day indoors. The practical lesson is therefore not to chase an arbitrary amount of water. It's to pay attention to hydration as part of everyday health, particularly during exercise, hot conditions, and physically demanding days. Keeping water accessible can make that easier. Now let's consider something that can sometimes be forgotten in health and fitness conversations: recovery. There can be a tendency to assume that if some exercise is good, more must always be better. But training and recovery perform different roles. Exercise provides a stimulus, recovery allows adaptation. That means supporting physical health isn't simply about asking, how much can I do? It can also mean asking, how well am I recovering from what I'm doing? Recovery may involve adequate sleep, rest days, gentle walking, mobility work, appropriate hydration and nutrition, and managing overall training load so that activity remains sustainable for someone beginning an exercise program. This distinction can be particularly important. You don't necessarily need to prove your commitment by exhausting yourself every day. The objective is to create a pattern of activity that your body can recover from and continue performing consistently. Sometimes supporting vitality means knowing when to move. Sometimes it means knowing when to recover. And then there is another form of load that isn't always visible. Mental load. A person can spend the entire day sitting at a desk and still arrive home feeling exhausted. Psychological stress, constant decision making, work demands, and persistent stimulation can influence sleep, perceived fatigue, recovery, and our everyday health behaviors. Stress management doesn't mean eliminating every difficult situation from life. That's rarely realistic. Instead, practical lifestyle medicine can include creating periods when the nervous system isn't constantly being asked to respond to another demand. That might involve a few minutes of slower breathing, going for a walk outdoors, creating boundaries around work, spending time with supportive people, putting the phone away for a period, or simply allowing genuine rest without feeling that every minute must be productive. None of these practices should be presented as a cure for unexplained fatigue. They are simply tools that can form part of a healthier overall lifestyle. And that distinction brings us to an important clinical point. Not all tiredness is simply a lifestyle issue. Fatigue can have many potential causes. Sleep disorders, nutritional deficiencies, medication effects, and underlying medical conditions can all contribute. So if fatigue is persistent, severe, new, worsening, or difficult to explain, it deserves appropriate healthcare assessment. Lifestyle medicine works best when we respect that distinction. Everyday habits can create a healthier foundation. Healthcare assessment helps investigate symptoms that may require further attention. So what can we actually take from all of this and apply tomorrow? Start by looking at your own energy environment. Ask yourself, how much am I moving during an ordinary day? Am I sitting for hours without interruption? Am I giving myself sufficient opportunity for restorative sleep? Am I getting outside and experiencing natural daylight? Am I paying attention to hydration? Does my training program include recovery? And do I have genuine periods when my mind is allowed to disengage from constant demands? You don't need to change all 6 areas tomorrow. In fact, trying to overhaul everything at once can make healthy living unnecessarily complicated. Instead, identify one foundation that could use some attention. Perhaps you begin taking a short morning walk. Perhaps you establish a more consistent bedtime. Perhaps you start taking your lunch break outside. Perhaps you keep water accessible during your working day. Perhaps you finally schedule the recovery day you've been skipping. Or perhaps you create 20 minutes in the evening when work, notifications, and constant stimulation stop. Then practice that behavior consistently. Once it becomes part of everyday life, another foundation can be strengthened. This is lifestyle medicine in practice, not chasing perfection, not searching for one behavior that supposedly solves everything, but understanding that health is influenced by multiple systems and then gradually building an environment that supports those systems. Movement matters, sleep matters, light matters, hydration matters, recovery matters, and managing mental load matters. Individually, each may appear remarkably simple. Together, they form part of the lifestyle environment in which everyday health and vitality are experienced. Healthy energy isn't created by one habit alone. It's supported by the way many ordinary habits interact across the day. And perhaps that's the most useful question to live with. What does the environment I'm creating every day ask my body to adapt to? Because healthy living isn't only about what we know. It's about what we repeatedly practice. Knowledge creates awareness. Food creates nourishment. Lifestyle creates transformation.